All right. Good morning, Advanced EL Support. It is Monday, May the 4th. Monday, May the 4th. And I hope all is well with you. I hope you had a chance to look over the agenda real quick. And above all, to do the do now, which I asked you guys to look up the word postponed. Postponed, right? If you did, you'll notice that its definition is very similar to deferred, one of the words in the title of the poem that I gave you guys last Thursday to consider, The Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. And it means postponed, which means put off until later, right? Or put off until after something. Notice that postponed, the first four words or first four letters in postponed are what? Post. No way. It refers back to our prefix work from last week also. Post means behind or after. So to postpone something is to put it off till after, or to perpetually put it behind your other priorities. And if it keeps getting deferred, if something keeps getting postponed, especially a dream, right, then it never happens. It's very easy to do. Everybody has dreams, but it's so easy for us to keep putting them off. Oh, you know what? I got too much to do. I got to go to work. I got to do, Will Cox's Deer Log or whatever. But suddenly you wake up when you're 40 years old and you haven't accomplished your dreams. That's what happens to a lot of people, right? So postponed, again, to procrastinate, to put it off until later. Oh, don't worry about that. I can do that later, right? Well, sometimes later never comes. And that's what you've got in this poem with some other dimensions. So what I want to do today in class, if you can call this a class, is just review that poem and what I asked you guys to do, because this is what we're going to start doing once a week. One of our class periods a week, I'm going to assign you guys a very short poem in English, and we're going to use that poem to illustrate different literary terms, different things that are going to help you study literature in your other classes, or your other English class mainly. We're looking at metaphor and simile today, right? Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes is an excellent example because it features both similes and metaphors. It's a mix of those two things. So I thought it'd be a good way for you guys to try and go down through a poem and differentiate, right? Establish the difference between a simile and a metaphor to know one from the other, because they're actually very similar. They're both types of figurative language which compare things. Compare things, all right? So once a week, we're going to do this type of thing. And then the other class period of that week, the Thursday class, I'm just going to have you guys do a deer log. Or no, you'll do a deer log on Mondays. So that's all your homework is today. Between now and Thursday, all you have to do is one deer log. No poem, no extra work. But on Thursdays, I'm going to give you these poems that have literary terms sort of attached to them, and keep you guys' brains working. The goal, not to give you too much work, but to give you just enough to keep your mind sort of working. And again, I think these are generic lessons that could help any English class. All right, so I'll go over this poem and the work that I wanted you to do, and then I will leave you with nothing but a deer log to do between now and Thursday. On Thursday, I will give you another little piece of poetry work. All right. I will be sending a communication home soon to you and your parents about the district grading policy too. There's an official grading policy now, and I want you guys to know how you're going to be graded. And the short answer is, it's pass or fail, or they're calling it credit or no credit. No A's, no B's, no C's. You either pass or you do not. You either get the credit or you don't. All right, so it's getting pretty basic here, but I'll send that communication home to you and your parents that you guys can make informed decisions about how you want the rest of this year to go. All right, well, enough of that. Let's try a screen share thing. And let's see if I can actually get that to share. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this image, and you don't have to see my ugly mug. And this is the work that I had you guys do. I've gotten it from about half of you. And again, we're looking at metaphor and simile. Metaphor, as you guys already looked up and already know, and I told you, I think in the last little meeting, metaphor is a comparison in language between two unlike things. All right. I gave you the example, life is a big juicy apple. which obviously it's not literally that. But figuratively, we can make that comparison. Life could be seen as juicy, something that you want to eat and enjoy. It could be sweet, right? Again, this would be when you're having a good day. You feel like life might be a big, juicy apple. Simile is also a comparison between two unlike things. So you can't compare two people's haircuts or two people's noses, for example. Those are like things. Those would not be a metaphor or a simile. They have to be two different things, all right? As I'm sure you know, a simile is a comparison in language which uses like or as. So it's as big as a building, or it is like glittering diamonds in the sky, right? I had that one for the stars. The stars are like glittering diamonds tonight in the sky. Sounds so romantic, doesn't it? So metaphor and simile, ladies and gentlemen, they achieve compression because by comparing two things, you can enrich someone's understanding or perception of a thing in your poem that you want them to consider. All right. So metaphor and simile is the two things that we are looking at today. All right. Here's our poem, Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. Remember, deferred means postponed or put off. Right. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. And then we'll go on down below. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? All right, so that's the poem. What happens to a dream that is postponed? What happens to a dream that is chronically put off and never addressed, right? We all have dreams, things that we want. Well, what happens to them? Well, if they're postponed, what happens? Using metaphors and similes, we can create different images, right? And enrich this image of a dream that is not acted upon, okay? So let's go down to where I actually had you guys doing stuff. Define the following words, first of all. Deferred, we have thoroughly defined. What happens to a dream postponed? What happens to a dream that's put off, right? Fester means like to become infected. You have like a cut, it gets dirty, right? Then little germs get in there, and then it starts to become infected and sore and swollen. Then it might fill full of pus or something, and it might run. In other words, it might ooze out, right? So a sore is like an open wound or like a big scab on you. Stink obviously means like some bad smell, something that smells bad. Syrupy is like thick liquid sugar solution, right? Syrup, like maple syrup or something, right? But think about maple syrup. When it gets old, it gets all crusty and crystallized up along the top. It's still sweet, right? But it's getting kind of like nasty. And lastly, sag is just to fall down as if under a weight, to sag. If you're standing up and you sag. And as you get older, your muscle tone starts to sag when you get older. Again, these are all things that are happening with age, and there are different ways of looking at what could happen poetically to a dream deferred. All right. So, we're right here. What question is being asked in the first line? Again, this is pretty clear. You know, what happens to a dream that is never acted upon, that's never realized? Number 3 here. What is compared to a deferred dream in lines 2 to 3? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? That's an interesting image, Raisin in the Sun. I think some of you guys read that play by Lorraine Newberry, right? A great play. It comes from this line of this poem. That's where she took the title, right? Because she's talking about dreams that have not been realized by the Black community. But this is the poem that just still could be any dream, any person, okay? So a raisin in the sun, think of a dream as a big plump grape, but you didn't do anything. It just sits there in the sun. You never act upon it. You never do anything with it. It starts to gradually dry up, become old, wrinkly, kind of nasty, and then it becomes like an old raisin. Look at that beautiful plump grape of a dream that's now become desiccated and small like a raisin. See, this is what figurative language, comparison, like metaphor and simile, can do to your poem, right? And to the imagery that you want to create around a concept, like a dream that's not acted upon. Okay, So good, number two, and number three. Number four, what's compared to a deferred dream in lines 4 to 5? I'm looking at the copy of the poem right here. Does it fester like a sore and then run? So maybe a dream becomes like a wound if you don't act upon it. It becomes like a cut, right? And then if you still don't do anything about it, it gets infected and it starts to hurt. It's that nagging little pain, from an infected sore, just like a dream that you haven't done anything about. It nags at your consciousness in the back. It bothers you. But I don't have time for that right now. I got to do my thing, right? Maybe you just want to drain it and move on with your day, right? So lines 4 to 5, festering like a sore and then running, not running like this, but like a sore runs, like pus oozes out, infection oozes out. What a startling and disturbing image. Don't you agree? Let me get to number 5. Line 6 is its own comparison. Does it stink like rotten meat? Maybe a dream starts off as a plump bunch of flesh, right? But then you don't do anything about it and it kind of gets infected, or the environment gets to it and it starts to rot and stink. Maybe a dream starts to rot and stink. Maybe there's always almost a smell that you have reminding you that your dream is rotting away and that you haven't done anything, right? What's your dream? Are you going to postpone it your entire life and never act upon it? These are things that can happen almost inside your psychology, right? In this poetical way. And that's what a good artist, a good writer can do. Okay. These first three, 3, 4, and 5, these are all similes. They're not metaphors, they're similes. Why? Because they use like. Does the dream deferred dry up like a raisin in the sun? Does it fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Right? So far we have all similes. And then I asked you guys to explain in a little more detail what these comparisons suggested. And that's what I'm also trying to do here with these answers, right? The raisin in the sun, it gets old and wrinkly and nasty. These are the sorts of answers I want you guys to try and give in future assignments when I give you a short poem and ask you some questions about this, different types of figurative language, and different types of ways to compare in language, okay? So that was line 6, they're stinking like rotten meat one, nasty. All these are pretty nasty, to think about it, because a dream deferred is unpleasant. It's a sad thing. And all these images are sad. They're images of decay and aging, right? Don't do it. Act upon your dream. Come on, you're young, full of piss and vinegar. Okay, so number 6, what's compared to a dream deferred in lines 7 to 8? Here we're looking at, does the dream that you postponed, does it crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Crust and sugar over. Now you might think, oh yeah, it's sweet. It's a dream. Yeah, it's kind of like candy or something, right? But crusting and sugaring over. I don't know if this ever happened to you, but sometimes during Easter, my mother would hide candy and we'd think we found it all, but there'd be 1 or 2 pieces of candy we didn't find. And sometime around Halloween, maybe in October, we would find that thing. And at this point, it's 6 or 7 months old. And you look in there, and if it's chocolate, it's starting to get kind of crusty and white on the sides. If it's a hard candy, it's pretty much melted or become completely crustified. So it's nasty. It's still sweet, but now it's old and crusted, like the opening to like a maple syrup jar, again, that's too old, right? So it could be like a piece of candy that's gotten old and nasty and you can't eat it anymore, right? Maybe that's what a dream that's postponed, a dream deferred, looks like, or what happens to it. Lines 9 and 10, maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. So now the dream deferred has become like a burden or a weight that you have to carry around, and your back becomes bent. It makes you old. Your back becomes all crooked and everything. And now you just carry it around, schlepping it around, right? This is probably a reference maybe to Jesus Christ also, right? Who carried the cross that he was going to be crucified on up the hills of Golgotha. It's the burden that he had to carry, right? Sagging under his heavy load, his dream that humanity would love each other and that we wouldn't be such a bunch of jerks, right? So possibly a little Jesus reference too. But again, look at how powerful the language is in a comparison. It can suggest all these other things, right? So sagging like a heavy load. Let me get to this last line. What is the dream deferred compared to in the last line, number 11? Or does it explode? Does the dream deferred explode? Okay. Well, what's the comparison there, right? A lot of students, they can define what a metaphor and a simile is, but once you show them an example of one and you ask what is compared, it's sometimes very hard for them to decide what the two things are that are compared. This poem is fairly easy. Everything is compared to a dream deferred, right? But this last one, does the dream deferred explode? Well, what's it comparing it to? Dream deferred and explode? No, it's comparing it to something that explodes. And now we're looking at a bomb, um, some kind of pressurized container, right? Something that has to burst outward. Does a dream that is never acted upon explode? Do people go crazy and lose it? Do they have psychological breakdowns? Is there like an explosion in their brain? Ah, now we're getting somewhere. And again, notice the suggestiveness of the language. That's what poetry is all about. So, number 9, what are some types of dreams that this poem might be talking about? I just wanted you guys to pluck some. Some good ones I got. Amron, you said the American dream. Yes, right? This dream of a good life. Maybe that's what people keep postponing. Maybe you want to find love, but you keep, I'll get married, when I'm 30 or something like that. Maybe it's a successful career. Maybe it's something very simple like, saving up for something. These are all little goals and dreams, and any of those could be what this poem is talking about, right? But then this last bit, you get to the suggestion that the dream explodes, and then you get the name Langston Hughes, right? So how does the meaning of the dream deferred change when you find out the poet Langston Hughes is African American? Remember, we did the I Have a Dream speech in my class. I had you guys memorize it and everything. That's the dream. What is Martin Luther King's dream? Racial equality, a place where people will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, where little white boys and little white girls and little black boys and little black girls can join hands, where they can go to the same schools, and skin color is no barrier. It's not a problem. That's Martin Luther King's dream, right? Did the civil rights movement accomplish it? It started, but no, we still have a major race problem in this country. And so at the end, what I'm really asking you to consider is, what if Langston Hughes is talking about the dream of racial equality? What if that's the dream that keeps getting postponed? What if the Black community has been promised and promised, oh, hey, don't worry, man, pretty soon everything's going to be great. Or we already live in a perfectly equal society. Everything's fine. Well, when you lie and deny and keep the dream from happening, right, anger starts to build. And what you get in the 1960s, along with Martin Luther King's nonviolent campaign, is the beginnings of violence. When you repress people and their dreams, it builds up. It's like compresses, and then there's, bam, an explosion. Is it a revolution? Is it a riot? Yes, but violence starts to happen in big cities in the United States in the 1960s. This poem was written in 1951, but Langston Hughes is well aware that there's been all of this oppression of Black people and that the anger was building up. So this poem is written 15 years before the civil rights movement, but Langston Hughes was almost looking into the future, and he knows that if the Black community is not given equal rights and that there's not some sort of attempt by America to make some kind of compensation for everything that's happened to Black people, there's going to be anger, there's going to be an explosion, there might be violence, right? There were riots in Hunters Point in San Francisco in 1965, 66, I think. But Black communities all across America had had enough of police brutality. And I'm going to try and find an attachment that you guys can watch, actually about a 5-minute video at the bottom of this email that I'm sending you that shows you some of the stuff that's going on in Birmingham, Alabama, after Martin Luther King gets arrested and thrown in jail. Things become ugly. And fire hoses are used to shoot, high pressure fire hoses are used to shoot Black people off their feet. Dogs are attacking them. They're fighting back and attacking cops, and it gets really, really ugly, right? So in the end, this poem ends on a meditation about racial violence, the possibility of racial violence in the United States. But what I really want you guys to get is the richness of the language used by a skillful poet like Langston Hughes, what it can accomplish in terms of imagery and a meditation on a really important subject, not about dreams, the dreams that we all have, but the dreams of the United States, the promises that the United States has made for democracy and freedom for people, right? And the fact that the Black community in this country, starting from slavery, has been the most underserved, most oppressed community in this so-called land of the free. And that's what Langston Hughes wants to leave us with. We all have dreams and we can participate in this poem. But Langston Hughes in the end wants you to remember, hey man, I'm Black, by the way, a Black American. And when I talk about a dream deferred, this is where my mind goes. And this is where my fears lie, right? That violence will happen instead of the attempt at a racially equal society that I think many Americans believe in, and that were some of the founding ideas of this country, right? So hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't finished the poetry work yet, you can watch this video, do the work, and get it to me. I don't care. Due dates are flexible, so get the work into me as you can. And as I said, the only assignment I'm giving you for this class by Thursday is to do one dear log. One dear log. So read 20 minutes, write me about a half a page, and post it on Google Docs, share it with me, and you guys will be in good shape. All right. And then next Monday, I will give you another, on Thursday, I'll give you another little poetry piece for your consideration and work. And that'll be the pattern. Mondays, I'll go over the assignment from Thursday, the poetry assignment. And then on Thursday, I'll give you another little poetry assignment, which I will introduce on that day. All right. So do me a dear log by Thursday. If you haven't done this poetry work, please do it. I hope you guys are okay. And it looks like another beautiful day out there in paradise here during the plague. Let's stop the share. If I can do it. Good. All right. It's me. How do you do? Take care, you guys. I'll tune in with you, so to speak, on Thursday. All right. Yeah, let's end that meeting.